So far, every time we've made something change in a GUI or with our graphics, it has been because the user did something. So for example, they pressed a button or they clicked the mouse, and then when that happened, we had a handler that would execute code and make something change inside of the GUI. There are times when you want stuff to happen without the user necessarily initiating it, or you want something to extend after the user has done whatever it is that they've done. And for that, we need to create an animation. In this video, we're specifically going to focus on the animation timer, but first it's worth looking at the different types of animations that we have. There's actually a whole package called scalafx.animation, which has a type in it called animation. It has a number of different things inside of it. And there are two main subtypes of this. One is the transition and one is a timeline. We'll work on those later. Right now I want to focus on the animation timer. The transitions and the timelines are good for kind of scripting out things that are going to happen, but making something really interactive, it's best if you use the animation timer for that. So, I've started a file. I called it Runaway, and the reason I called it that is because this is going to be kind of a little game-like thing. What I want to do is I want to have a circle placed in the scene, and I want to make it so that that circle moves towards some other, well, maybe they'll have two circles, or maybe one of them will be a rectangle or something like that. And then I want it so that the other thing, whether it's a different colored circle or a rectangle, is controlled by the keyboard with the user, and the user is supposed to stay away from the circle that's moving towards them. Okay, so that's the idea. So we'll start off by making, and then actually I think my goal would be to have it so that we can have maybe multiple circles in here. Enemies is a list, and I'm first going to put in a single circle. So, and this will inevitably have to be a var because we're going to add more enemies over time. So a circle that starts off kind of in the top corner, 10, 10, 10. We'll see if that's too small. We might decide that we want to make that larger. And then and let's see, yeah, that'll work. For the user, actually probably making another circle is fine, but I do want to make it a different color. So player is a circle of, we'll say 300, 320. The player will be larger. That'll actually make it harder on the player. And player.fill is color, which we're not importing right now. We can change that by putting it in the paint package. Color dot, how about we go with green for the user. Content equals a list of enemies. There's an interesting, well, okay. As long as I'm only starting off with one, I can do this and player. Or I could say content equals player, content plus plus. Actually, I think I've seen that one isn't going to work. Okay, let's go with my original idea. Enemies dot head and player. I just want to see that this works. scalafx of Runaway, which pops up a window. Okay, so there is our little circle for the enemy. There is the player circle. And now I want the enemy to move towards the player. And this is where our animation timer comes in. So we're going to make a timer. It is made with AnimationTimer. And then the AnimationTimer is passed a handler function. This handler function is going to be called at regular intervals, kind of whenever scalafx gets around to it. To deal with the fact that we don't know exactly how long it is between calls, this is passed in a value. I'm calling it t for time. Now that happens to be a time that's measured in nanoseconds, so it can be a rather accurate time. But its absolute magnitude, it's not necessarily from when the program started running or whatever. So in order to know how much time has elapsed since the last time, I'm going to create a var called last time. And one of the things that will wind up happening in here is last time will be set equal to the t. Since it starts at 0 and t starts at who knows what, kind of the first time through I'm just going to let the timer go. But in order to make it so we don't do something weird the first time, we're going to say if last time is greater than 0, then we'll do something, otherwise we'll just set it to be equal to the time, and to make the timer go we have to call start. So what should happen inside of here? Well, I want to make it so that the enemy moves towards the player. And to kind of parameterize this so I don't have some magic numbers in there, how about we make some, I'll start them off as vals, an enemy speed, and this will be in like pixels per second. How far should the enemy be able to move in 1 second? I don't know, maybe 20 pixels seems reasonable. And the val player speed. Turns out that if the player can't move faster, things are going to be problematic because we don't have any walls in the way. There's nothing you can hide behind. So I'm going to make the player, we'll start off with 25. These are nice numbers that we can adjust later on. The amount of time that's passed is t minus last time. And because that's measured in nanoseconds, I want to get it in seconds. So I'm going to create a little variable here. I'll call it delta, which is how much time has passed since the last time we went through the timer. Let's see. How about we make a val dx. Actually, I need to have a loop for e in enemies. And we're going to put a yield on this because we're making kind of new enemies from the old ones. That's one way to do it. Now, if these circles are mutable, we'll try going without the yield to start with. So then e dot, well, I want to set things like the where it is located, and I want it to be moving towards the player. I believe that the circle has a center X and a center Y. Let's go look at circle. There's the layouts, here's the shapes. Circle has a center X, has a center Y, and we can set them in addition to getting values from them. Okay, so that's helpful. So here's what I want to do. Val dx equals the enemy, actually just e dot center x dot value minus player dot center x dot value. That's how far apart you are in x. We'll also get how far apart you are in y. And this is actually vectors. Let's see, player, and we'll make this one the enemy. There we go. This is kind of points from the enemy towards the player then. And val dist equals math.square root of the x squared plus the y squared. That gives me the distance between this enemy and the player. And then all I'm going to do right now is make it so that the enemy moves towards the player along that line. So then E dot center x equals E dot center x dot value plus dx divided by dist times enemy speed. We'll do the same thing to the y values here. And that's quite enough code for me to be able to test it, see how many things I have mistyped. Oh, I have not yet included the things from animation. So let's do an import of scalafx.animation underscore. We'll just bring in everything. That'll give us our animation timer. And last time needs a capital T. Since I only have one T in there, it needs two T's, and one of them has to be capitalized. And here we go. And once this pops up, whoa, there it went. I don't even know if that was visible to anyone watching this video. Let's slow the enemy down a little bit. In fact, this game isn't going to be very playable at that speed. Okay, there you go. You can see that the enemy moves towards the player. So we've made our animation timer, and it controls some animation. We'll come back because I want to be able to move the player and show how we can do things like get diagonal motion, which we couldn't do just by doing the on key pressed, using the key pressed and a timer combination.